battlefield to home front, which he wrote with his battle buddy, Dale Beatty. John, thanks for taking the time to join us today. Really appreciate, first of all, I've read most of the book, just some great storytelling, and I think provides a lot of insight into not only you and Dale and your relationship, but also the experience that combat wounded veterans all over the country face when they return home.
Well, thank you for being here and for the time and opportunity. It's great to be on the show for the first time. Really, Wounded Homecoming is just to be able to help folks understand that as a veteran, whether you're from Iraq or Afghanistan, or whether you served in Vietnam or World War II, Korea, or anywhere in between, we're not different. We're all the same. Dale and I share stories of our childhood and show the similarities. In addition, we show and share the similarities of our military service. What was not similar for us and our experiences was that Statesville and Iredell County welcomed us home differently than most veterans experience a welcome home. And that made a profound impact on us. And seeing other charities and the work that they did, we realized that we could help veterans that were in need of housing assistance. And with that in mind, our society really is made up of people and in a manner that they impact us, and we're threaded together almost like a puzzle. And so when you take a piece of a puzzle, maybe like a veteran, and remove them into an extreme environment, take a piece of puzzle, drop it in a cup of coffee, will that puzzle piece ever fit back the same? It's not. Society has to, likewise for the veteran that went to combat, they have to make room, they have to accept our veterans back into society. And that's what Statesville and Iredell County did for us, and what we share with the rest of the world, and how they too can help their veterans in their communities do the same.
And just before I forget, all the proceeds from the book sale are going to benefit Purple Heart Homes, correct?
That's right.
So let's talk a little bit about the process of writing the book. When we were talking earlier, you mentioned that you and Dale didn't really see yourselves as authors, but when you were out talking about Purple Heart Homes, people would say, you guys really need to write a book and get this down. So just talk a little bit about the process. Would your English teachers be surprised that you guys were authors at this point?
Dale and I always have said, North Iredell and West Iredell graduates can do a lot if they put their mind to it, and this is just proof of that. I hope that all those English teachers would be proud of us in that regard. It was a wonderful experience. We had a publisher out of Chicago who's been working with us for about the past year and a half. We had over 600 hours of interviews and work in creating the basic content for the book. There's some irony in it, certainly in Dale's passing just a few days after we finished the final edit on the manuscript. And then looking back, we actually met and were introduced to a publisher on Dale's birthday a year prior. So it was really bittersweet going through the process of reliving our 22 years of friendship together to be able to write the book, and then him not see it in the same way. It's been tough. Really proud of it. We got a lot of pre-orders, a lot of people looking forward to reading it. It'll be on Amazon on May 8th, so we're happy about that. Looking forward to being able to share with communities how they can make a difference for their veterans.
Don't want to give away too much of the book, but one thing that I found interesting was I think Dale wrote the chapter. You guys didn't really hit it off at first. You weren't fast friends, as they say. Maybe it's because you went to different high schools and were kind of rivals. Tell us a little bit about the seeds of your friendship and relationship.
We had a lot of friends that we both had acquaintances with. We had connections in the community. Dale's grandparents lived just about a half a mile from me. But we didn't first meet until we joined the National Guard together. And in that first meeting, I remember we had some PT that we had to do, like a little, physical fitness test to see where everybody was at, and Dale and I we were the two that were competitive. We were trying to outrun each other and do more push-ups and sit-ups and that sort of thing. And at the end of the day, we kind of were in the same little classification, if you will. And so, everything we did for about the first year was very competitive, and eventually you kind of start relying on each other. You start, having to work together, and we had fun together. We got to do things like going to the Coca-Cola 600, down to Charlotte Motor Speedway and holding the big flag out there, and just that patriotism and the camaraderie and working together and being competitive. We did become friends, but it wasn't fast. But I believe that if it would have been fast, it wouldn't have been as long.
Part of the book, you guys talk about your experiences helping flood victims in eastern North Carolina. There are a couple of surreal moments in there that I think the readers will find very interesting, where you're helping people who've lost everything, water's in their house, you have guns pointed at you at one point. There's another part where you rescue somebody who's literally floating on their bed in their house. Those shared experiences stateside must have really paid dividends when you found yourselves in combat.
It's interesting. I think most often we think of our military as just guns and bullets and bombs, and that's not really what we do. And it was kind of a profound comment in the process of writing the book, that we were trained to go to war, but we were really there to help people. And for that, we did take some experiences that, from a stateside duty for hurricane reliefs and flood relief, where we were able to apply that in Iraq. We were there at Hearts and Minds campaign in Iraq. We were knocking on people's doors, not kicking them in. We had, in a non-aggressive posture, we were not pointing our weapons at the people in Iraq. And while we were in Goldsboro, North Carolina, we did not have weapons at all, and so it was quite scary. Whether it be people didn't want to leave their homes because they valued their home, and I think that speaks to how a veteran values their home and what it's like to come home wounded and not feel comfortable or not really truly feel accepted. You're different after combat. You realize that yourself, and after a while people start telling you you're different, and then eventually you say, they see my difference and it's bad, and therefore I don't want to be seen. And a veteran needs that connection in order to be able to overcome the challenges from the moral injury.
Very good point. I think one of the most profound parts of the book that I found is how you draw connections between your service and the service of generations before you who've served in various conflicts, and I don't know if destigmatize is the right word, but you really, I think, will help people see that while the individual experiences on the battlefield are different for soldiers returning home, a lot of what they experience internally is similar.
It really is. We live in a society that, it's sound bites. We have a nanosecond of ability to focus, and we're on to the next thing. And so most often people don't ask the questions. They can see an amputation, they can see a prosthetic, and therefore, okay, I can make that connection, I can have empathy, and I can move forward and feel good that I made a good connection. But when a veteran is wearing a leather vest and they have patches all over it that say Vietnam and I was here and I was there, it's because there is a need to have a connection. And when society just walks by them and doesn't validate their service yet again, nearly 50 years after, their war, we're really doing them an injustice. They have a moral injury inside. There's no way you can be in combat and see the brutality and barbarianism that is present and not be affected morally. That you come home to this society that, you know, we're so far removed. We've not experienced for generations what it's like to have a war zone in our backyard, and that disconnect and that visible lack of connection. That you're a war veteran, you have an amputation, you were hurt, I can help you, versus that Vietnam veteran that maybe doesn't have the physical injury, but their invisible injury is screaming for help and recognition.
We're approaching the 3-month anniversary of Dale's passing. Wanted to talk with you for a few minutes just about how Purple Heart Homes is doing. Give us an idea of what projects you're involved with now, maybe the support that you've experienced since Dale's passing, and give us an idea of what the future looks like for Purple Heart Homes.
You know, I think in many ways, from a support aspect, Statesville is continuing to do what Statesville has always done. They care about their own, they care about their community, and that for me just continues to validate that, you know, where I live is a great place to live, and I'm really happy for that. The support that's poured out for the family has been phenomenal, whether it be through the Dale Beatty Family Trust or whether it be through folks checking on the family, helping do little chores around the house. It's really tough to write the honey-do list and to do the honey-do list, and so the family's had a lot of need, and Dale was just bigger than life. You know, you think sometimes about the invisible injuries and how crippling they can be, and then here's a guy with, you know, 2 prosthetic legs that, you know, not only does he get up and go to work to help other people, but he comes home and he does at home. And you know, he was as much a leader at home as he was at work, and as much as he was in our community. With that in mind, you know, the organization's continuing to work on projects around the country. We've got 12 cities we're partnered with this year with their mayors to bring veteran housing projects to their communities and help their local veterans. We've got 20 other projects that we're working on here out of this office currently. We got a backlog of about 120 projects, veteran applicants that we're working through. Our chapters are continuing to grow. We've received more and more calls for developing a chapter each day. Last week we got 3 from Alaska, 1 from Hawaii, and so won't be long we'll be looking for somebody to do some traveling.
So the need is great, and one way local people and people all over the country can support the efforts is by purchasing your book, which is going to be available on Amazon, and you can also find information for it on the Purple Heart Homes website. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. Incredible work that you guys are doing around the country, and I think the book turned out great, and it's something that you should be proud of, and I'm sure Dale will be proud of as well.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.